There's a new effort at Northwestern's Feinberg School of Medicine to study how to slow down or even reverse the aging process. The new Podesnak Longevity Institute will also research things like why some people seem to age faster than others and how this research can help older folks with chronic health conditions, including HIV. And joining us now to tell us more is the Institute's director, Dr. Douglas Vaughn. Dr. Vaughn, welcome to Chicago Tonight. First off, you make an important distinction in your research between chronological and physiological aging. So what is the difference?
That's a very important distinction, and I think it's something that we're all familiar with in our everyday life. It doesn't matter how many times you orbit the sun, but we know people that age more rapidly or more slowly than they appear to be. So that tells us that there's a biology there, and that's really the insight that's guided and catalyzed the formation of this institute.
And you're studying a lot of things. You're studying therapeutics that, as we mentioned, could at some point slow down or even reverse the aging process. Can you explain that?
Well, there are multiple components of the Institute. Certainly, we want to be able to measure and track the velocity of aging in our fellow human beings. And hopefully, we'll find ways to intervene on that process and change the slope of the curve. It might be through dietary interventions. It might be through lifestyle interventions. It might be through drugs.
And I know that the focus of your research is to help treat people that have chronic conditions later in life, but what would this mean in terms of human lifespan?
Well, almost every disease that we deal with in adult medicine has a primary risk factor of age. Age is the most important risk factor for heart disease, for cancer, for Alzheimer's disease. We think if we can push back the aging process, we can impact upon diseases that occur in the aging population and perhaps extend the health span a decade or more.
And have you discovered anything about that biological process that causes some people to age quicker than others and why that happens?
Well, there are certainly genetic variants out there in the population. They're not very common, but they can contribute to a rapid aging phenotype in some people, and we see people like that in the hospital quite regularly. There are common clinical conditions that accelerate aging, things like chronic kidney disease or chronic HIV infection. So those tell us a lot about the process. And we think we also have flipped that coin over. We've identified a population of old order Amish that live in northeastern Indiana that carry a genetic variant that appears to protect them from aging in a variety of different ways. So we're looking at it from both sides of the spectrum, and rapid aging, slower aging, and together hopefully we'll meet in the middle and find ways that we can contribute to and help protect everybody from this process.
Well, I think you've piqued a lot of our viewers' curiosity as well as mine. Tell us more about that old order Amish population in Indiana that you found and what their characteristics are and what that genetic component is that slows down aging in them.
It's a very specific community that immigrated into the area around Adams County, Indiana in the middle of the 1800s from Switzerland. And they harbor a genetic variant that's only found in that population that appears to protect against aging. My laboratory group has been studying this population now for several years. We have ongoing studies now, but it appears to touch on multiple aspects of aging, everything from their cardiovascular function to their metabolism to their lifespan. So we think that Amish population is really kind of a natural. Maybe they present something that like a fountain of youth that we could turn into a therapeutic approach that could impact upon everybody.
Well, and that was going to be my follow-up. Have you discovered things about them that can be applied to the general population in terms of therapeutics?
Yeah, the genetic variant that they have really impacts upon the level of a protein that circulates in our blood. I can measure it in you or anybody else that's listening to us today. And there are already drugs being developed, being tested in humans that can lower the levels of that protein in the blood. And we think that might be one way to potentially slow down the aging process or slow down the development of aging-related diseases.
And I know an important component of your work deals with folks living with HIV. Why
Yeah.
is anti-aging research so important to those with HIV?
Well, it's a remarkable story. HIV was a lethal disease in the 1980s. Fast forward to this moment in time, with the proper combination of therapeutics, people live much longer. But we're seeing that some individuals with chronic HIV infections manifest something that looks like accelerated aging. So we need to understand that biology, and perhaps by understanding that, we'll have a greater understanding what drives aging in people without HIV.
And as we mentioned, the POTUS Longevity Institute just launched at the Feinberg School, and you're leading this up. We mentioned at the top, not just slowing down the aging process, but reversing the aging process. That sounds kind of utopian. Explain what that would even look like.
Well, there are molecular drivers of aging that we can identify now. Simple things like our DNA gets methylated as we age, and that methylation process changes the functionality of our DNA. Since DNA can be methylated and it drives aging, it's also possible to demethylate DNA and perhaps reverse aging. And that's one of the hypotheses that we can test over the next few years.
A lot of important work to come out of the Longevity Institute there at the Feinberg School. And our thanks to Dr. Douglas Vaughn. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.